So I'd like to welcome everyone here with us today to this very important webinar about looking at STEM as a pathway, entrepreneurship as a pathway to leadership in STEM. So we have two very interesting and experienced speakers from two different generations. I wouldn't say very different though, Hanan. But it's exciting. I want to start first by giving credit to She is Arab's intern, Dima Hijazi. We are very proud to have her with us as a team member. She's a scholar from Al Ghurair Foundation, a STEM scholar. She was awarded a scholarship and she's on the Dean's Honor List actually. And she's studying towards a Bachelor of Computer and Communications Engineering at AUB. I'd like to thank you, Dima, because she's the mastermind behind this webinar as a STEM student. And as she is Arab, we are hoping to also host more events that focus on STEM. So let me start first by introducing our speakers. So we have today with us Hanan bin Khallouk. Hanan is an award-winning multi-industry senior consultant with a broad scope of expertise. Hanan is a friend. We've worked together before. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today, Hanan.
Thank you so much.
Executive Director of Sustain Leadership, which is a consultancy specialized in strategic leadership, innovation, and transformational change. But besides that, Hanan is a major advocate of women empowerment and initiatives across the region, such as she's the co-founder of the first Lean-In Circle in the GCC. She's a founding mentor of The Link, which is a mentorship initiative focused on women. She's the founding VP of the first Seroptimist network or chapter in the GCC. So she has a lot going on besides what she does at Sustain Leadership. I must say also that she is a published author. She has won multiple awards. And we don't really have time to mention all of them, mashallah, but she has won the Safira Award from Morocco. She has won Executive Women magazine, multiple awards as well. And some of her articles were published in the Harvard Business Review as well as Forbes Middle East. As for Aya Muallim, Aya is from Beirut, Lebanon, where she's joining us from today. She is pursuing a PhD in electrical engineering as a Knight Hennessy Scholar at Stanford University. She's a graduate of AUB, has a bachelor's degree in computer and communications engineering, just like our Dima. And she has research experience with the research groups at Stanford, at AUB, and at UC Irvine. And she is the co-founder of All Girls Code, which is a fantastic initiative that encourages young girls in Lebanon and the MENA region to pursue STEM. We've learned from Aya that actually it has garnered interest from girls outside of the MENA region as well. So we'll hear more about that from Aya later during the webinar. And it has attracted, of course, major international and local interest, won multiple awards. And as for Aya herself, she has also completed fellowships with Johnson & Johnson and Women Deliver, and she's also an award-winning speaker with us today. She has won the Princess Diana Award and the Penrose Award for her advocacy efforts. So, ladies, I'd like to welcome you both today. It's a very important topic that we're here to address. There's a lot to say about that, especially that we have a very high number of STEM graduates in the MENA region, but that clearly is not reflected in the workforce. It's almost like we have a leaking pipeline there. So we'd love to start first by setting the scene by listening to Aya. She's going to introduce All Girls Code to us, and then we'll take it from there. Please go ahead, Aya.
Thank you so much, Samal, for the introduction. So, hi everyone. I'm Aya, and as someone mentioned, I'm a co-founder of All Girls Code, which is a nonprofit community initiative fully run by volunteers. And we're ensuring that young girls have the chance to try out STEM fields firsthand before they apply to university. As someone had mentioned, our initiative has been recognized, supported, and awarded by local and international organizations such as HP, the American University of Beirut, Stanford's G++, Johnson & Johnson, and even the Lebanese Prime Minister's Summer of Innovation program. So what about us? Who are we and what's our goal? Let's see in the next slide. So we started off in 2017 as my co-founder Maya Musa and I were discussing how weird it felt for me to be one of two girls in a software engineering lab of more than 20 students. And the numbers were off in several technical courses as well, not just in this lab. So we started by running programs to bring girls over to campus, introduce them to tech over different days, and we continued over the years. And as you can see in 2020, we're hosting our events virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but the mission remains as is. We focus on three main goals. The first one is fostering sisterhood. So we want to make sure that these young girls know that they're not alone in STEM. There's a community that's ready to support them and empower them when needed, and no one's pitting them against each other. We also want to encourage leadership because, as someone had mentioned, there are a lot of women who are pursuing STEM fields at university in the Middle East. Some reports by the UNESCO mentioned that the percentage is around 50%, which is relatively high compared to the rest of the world. However, we face issues with having these girls persist in these fields after they graduate, and there are very few women in leadership positions and in executive boards of tech companies in the region. That's why we want to make sure to encourage the leadership potential of these girls starting at such a young age. And of course, we work on developing coding skills, robotics skills, not only theoretically, but by showing the girls how STEM is applied in every single field. Coding can be used for medicine, the environment, and so on. So we're a team of 50 full-time volunteers and interns. We work for free. It's just a community initiative, but we're very passionate about the cause. And we have served more than 400 young girls so far of ages between 12 and 22 years old. So next, so basically, one very important element of All Girls Code is the fact that all our programs are free of charge. We want to make sure that socioeconomic limitations do not stand in the face of any girl who's interested in trying out STEM firsthand. So we run a few programs year-round. Expand and Encounter events are just basically topics the girls suggest and they want to learn about, like Silicon Valley, for example, or majors and internships, and we do that year-round. We also run an internship program because we noticed that a lot of young girls find it very difficult to find quality internships in which they can learn and in which they feel that their work has direct impact. So with All Girls Code, what they're working on is directly translated into efforts on the ground. We run our annual Techsplore Summer program, which is for the first time this August running virtually. It's a 3-day program during which we have technical workshops, icebreakers, leadership sessions, guest speakers, and sometimes even a mini hackathon. And finally, and this is something I'd like to emphasize on, we have a mentorship program because we believe that it's so important to provide realistic role models and women figures who are leading in the Arab world in STEM, and to bridge the gap between young girls who are looking for these role models and these role models who are ready to give back to young girls. So through our mentorship program, we've assisted our girls with lots of advice, guidance, even with scholarship and university applications. And now in the next slide, we'll see the impact. So our statistics are pretty impressive for an initiative that's just been running for a few years. 75% of our attendees have become interested in STEM after attending our events. And 90% of our alumni who are now at university are studying STEM. So this is very important. We've mainly served girls from more than 10 countries of residence, but this year, due to COVID-19 again, there's a bright side, and it's the fact that we've had applicants for our August program from all over the world, from China to Mexico, to Kuwait, to Lebanon. So the diversity this time is crazy, it's large, and we're very excited for it. And I'd like to share a story here because numbers don't only reflect the impact that we've created. So one of our previous attendees is actually a refugee, and she attended several All Girls Code events, and then she participated in our mentorship program. She applied to university, we helped her out with her scholarship application, and she's now studying at the American University of Beirut, where I was studying, and I used to bump into her between classes. So it was amazing for us to see that our work, we're just volunteers, we're putting in our free time to do this. Our work has translated into really fast impact, you know, which we could have seen in less than a year of working programs. Apart from that, several of our girls have been accepted to United States Department of State programs like Tech Girls, the Harvard Crossroad Leaders Program, among others. And finally, like all initiatives and organizations around the world, we've been pretty affected by COVID-19. We're now taking the chance to shift our work digitally. So anyone who's interested in applying for our Techsplore summer program, today is actually the last day of applications. You can apply, or let any girl you know who's interested apply via our website, and it will be running virtually all over the world. Thank you so much. I guess I'm going to hand over the presentation to Hanan now.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Aya. This was a great intro. And I love the fact that All Girls Code is really focused on Gen Z, because I think that it's really important to focus on the younger generations. And I think just to reflect on the part of role models, this is really also why, you know, the ethos of why She is Arab was created, is really to showcase the amazing role models that we have across the region, because there's no shortage of talent, but it's all about, you know, connecting the dots, as they say. I just want to take this opportunity to mention that please, if you have any questions, any of the attendees, please feel free to click on the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen to share your question. You can also click on the virtual raise your hand button, and I can unmute your microphone if you'd like to verbally ask your question. We'll move on now to Hanan to hear from her as a leadership expert about really how do you think, Hanan, we can increase the number of women in STEM by focusing on leadership development? And I think you have a few slides for us that give us a good intro. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samar. And I'm really happy to be here today to talk about really an important topic that's close to my heart personally. And just listening to Aya, it feels like a breath of fresh air, because it makes me feel this is exactly what we were hoping and advocating for probably 10, 15 years ago, to really see some initiatives that would start encouraging and creating opportunities for more girls to gain more interest in the STEM field, the science, technology, engineering, and math. And yes, let's look back at the numbers. So the numbers from my generation have completely changed. It's like, I mean, we still have a challenge, so we don't want to dwell on that. We want to look, have a forward outlook to the future. And I feel that the demographics have been changing, and it shows that female talents have been outnumbering their male counterpart in all the Arab countries, going to 16-70%. As university attendance, but also as interest in the STEM. It's reaching up to 60% in some countries, and to me, that's fantastic. However, that's not reflected, again, because the latest numbers that we look at as in employment, the unemployment within the female talent is 3 times. I think it was about 15% in the Arab world compared to 5.6%. So that's 3 times high unemployment rate when we talk about female talent, which leads me to see that, okay, is success for the Arab female talent, is it just going to be often limited to school? Yes, we succeed in school. Yes, we have this outnumbering, and we have these massive numbers of graduates, but we don't want it to stop at school. And that's exactly what we try to focus on. How can we integrate more female talent in the STEM field? And how can we maintain these numbers as they move from being a graduate to really thrive in a career in STEM field. Another number that I would like to look at that's really helping or making as well the Arab female talent outnumber their counterparts, not just the males there, but the female talents in the US and even some European countries. So when we look at the STEM graduates, I think the average in the US is about 14 to 16%. So when we look at more than 50, I think that's huge, just something to celebrate, in my opinion. But also in entrepreneurship, because I think with the lack of opportunities for female talent to integrate the workplace, they started getting into creating their own jobs by starting, STEM-related field enterprises. And I'd like to move to the next slide to just show. To talk about why. So we called it, actually, this is an initiative that I was going with universities to talk to university graduates and university students in engineering and in the STEM field, and to encourage to have more what I call WISE, which is Women in STEM Entrepreneurship. So before we look at what is happening today with research and through the many spaces that we run, through listening to so many female graduates and other women, including me, and I'll talk about my story later, why do we have less women that start, or we had at least, now it's changing, there is a rise, which is really very positive and very reassuring, but the general challenges and obstacles still remain that are really blocking the way to have more women in STEM entrepreneurship. Yes, we have a lot of women starting their own businesses, but if we look at the scope, if we look at the industries, it's still not scaling in the technology and science and engineering. And I think we could summarize them to, first it starts with society conditioning. And I think everybody who's listening to this webinar would agree that there is still that gender stereotype, gender roles, stereotype functions or stereotypes work, like which domain should be male or which domain is feminine. We often link entrepreneurship. When we think about entrepreneurship or owning a business, we feel that I have to have studied business. I mean, I studied STEM. How can I own a business? So there is still that, we have the education, we have interest in STEM, but we don't have that interest into starting something new or innovating in the STEM field as an entrepreneur. So everyone keeps just looking for a job after they finish. There's a lack of confidence, obviously, because starting a business is not for everyone. It includes taking risk. It requires certain skill sets. The fear of failure, and I feel that that could be included in the society conditioning as well, because I feel in our culture we don't really accept failure. We haven't grown up thinking that it's okay to fail. So we're always taught you have to be the first in university, you have to never repeat a year, you just have to be number one. So that fear of failure makes everybody not wanting to start something new. And that goes with the risk aversion as well, going back to stereotypes. But the main thing is the lack of guidance and support. And I think that's, we are all guilty of it. We need to have more spaces where there are mentors, where there are career counseling, academia as well. So there needs to be some kind of collaboration between academia, private and public sector to create this guidance for even at the age of the girls that go to All Girls Code with Aya, for example, so they know, okay, it's great to learn how to code. It's great to have good grades and go and choose STEM as a study or as a major, but we need to start finding out what are my career prospects? How can I start something new? And last but not least, and I think even if there is a big change from the past, just at least from the past 10 years and from the time that we were working at the foundation summit, if you remember, and we were really looking at the challenges that the entrepreneurial ecosystem has across the Arab world, I think we've gone a long way, but still there is a lack of capital to fund ventures that are led by women. That's across the world, but mainly, but it affects also the Arab world. However, I feel that entrepreneurship, before we move to the next one, I think that today we're looking at 35% of businesses that are launched in the Arab world are either led or financed by women. And I think that's another thing to applaud and to celebrate, which again, it's better than what's happening in Silicon Valley. And I think a lot of us don't know that. That's something that I'm really proud to see, a number like that. But what's really reassuring is that the STEM field or the technology field is fairly new in the Arab world anyway. So it hasn't yet been attached to the male gender like the other male-dominated fields, if we're talking about engineering or having a leadership position in a big company as an architect or as an engineer or in the oil field or even in science and medical field. So at least through entrepreneurship, which I feel would be the catalyst to have more female leaders in this field, because we are seeing more women starting businesses or technology platforms or businesses that are technology-based and technology-enabled. Because that field is still new, women are thriving more in starting those businesses. And I feel that we have a chance to start integrating more female talent and more female leaders through entrepreneurship, because an owned business by a female in the STEM field means a creation, not only for a job for her that she can lead and where she can thrive and innovate and have her own say, and not have to deal with a work environment that is male dominated, but that means that she's creating also job opportunities. Because I came across some statistics that show that every female-led business creates 25% more opportunities for other females compared to male-owned businesses. I saw that somewhere, so I think there is a lot of truth into it. So I feel that entrepreneurship in STEM field will be a real catalyst, but we need to encourage more girls, more females to start their businesses in the field. They would need definitely that mindset, start embracing failure, because if we are innovating, that means that we are starting something new. So there's 50% chance that it will fail, 50% chance that it will succeed. And that has to start from an early age. There is a skill set. And I personally was involved in some programs with universities. I would mention Abu Dhabi University. They had a competition a few years ago, and they called us to run the program for them, an incubation program. And they had a competition called Technopreneurs. So they had the students from the engineering school come up with ideas, with new ideas, and they linked them with other students from business school to be co-founders. And then we run a course or run a whole program for them to give them those skills that are needed to convert that idea that is technical into a business opportunity. We definitely need the conducive environment, which is competitions like these, innovation labs in universities, the private sector getting involved by integrating some interns, and I mean by research and development interns, and the full ecosystem that includes the financing, everything that we talked about, and mainly those spaces for mentoring. And we've seen that, in Lean In Arabia, and for those of you who don't know, Lean In is a global initiative that was launched by the COO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg. And we are proud to have started the first chapter in the GCC about 6 years ago, almost 7 years now. And part of the chapter, we have women in tech space. And those spaces are needed because they create a safe environment that gathers women that are working in the tech, and they talk about the challenges, they share their perspective, they tell their stories, and it's there where other women see that they can share, they can also learn from older women, from more senior professionals. So it's very crucial to create spaces for that peer support as well, so that we learn from each other and know how to tackle those challenges. We can move to the next one. Yeah, and we need to tell the stories. A lot of people don't know that women have already paved the way in innovation in the STEM field. And I just chose some examples from these. As I was doing some reading today to find some updated numbers, I came across a name of an Iraqi scientist that have really, mathematician, which from the 10th century, also an Egyptian scientist that had paved the way in the medical field. So we're now looking at the international ones. We have, the Arab history is rich of stories, success stories of women that since centuries have already paved the way that they can innovate in the science, technology, and engineering. And these stories are really important to tell to the younger girls so that they show, I mean, they work as role models as well. Yeah. So if we want to really look at that conducive environment, what it entails, I mean, I have a picture from, I think all of us, when we were, at least my generation, we might look at it as something that's not very important, but that's where the conditioning starts. It's all these stereotyped and gender stereotyped roles. It starts from the games, from the toys that we used when we were kids. It really conditions the roles of a female and the roles of a male. So, and I'm glad to see that now this is changing, because we need to inspire girls that they could do what a male does. She doesn't have to have always the kitchen or the toy or the baby because she needs to be a mother. Fine, that's great. That's another role, a noble role that all women will have to have at a reproductive age. But we need to change that to limit them and box them into that feminine role, or that stereotype role. Creating more awareness in the public, so tell stories, and I'm glad that there are spaces like She's Arab that features successful Arab women, because everyone needs to look up at somebody and feel that, okay, somebody has succeeded, that means I can do it as well. Recognition of achievement, it'll be great to see more recognitions across the Arab world. We need to use the media as well to tackle those stereotypes. When we look at commercials, TV shows, it's very, very important to do that. The regulatory framework has to change, because sometimes what really comes in the way of females to find leadership positions is sometimes, you know, the working conditions, and other terms that really make it hard for a female to integrate into some industries. And if we want to talk about entrepreneurship as well, ease of access to capital, it always goes a long way to help more women get into that venture of entrepreneurship. And I want to close with this. Entrepreneurship is really a leap of faith. So we need to believe, we need to take risk. We need to really know that we are getting into it because we want to break those glass ceilings. And I want to close with a beautiful quote from Marissa Mayer. She says, if you push through that feeling of being scared and that feeling of taking risk, really amazing things can happen. I think I've been there, and I wanted to say that I'm guilty of being a dropout from STEM, because I studied math and physics in high school. And in Morocco, where I come from, to do that, really need to cram, because only 2 individuals from the whole school get to move to that, what we call bac C. So that means it took a lot of hard work. And at the end, I went for business school. So why did I have to really work hard for 7 years to really be able to have those grades so I can pass and have that back C? It's because I couldn't see role models. There was nobody who guided me for career prospects, and I relied on my own assumptions. And my assumptions were that, okay, I'm gonna be an engineer, and I have to wear the uniform. I don't want that. I want to wear a suit. I want to look feminine. I mean, you might laugh at it, but think about how many girls might really miss chances because they just don't know that there is really career prospect that could lead to success. And they just choose the easy way, the most common one. And that's what I have done. And that's why part of what I'm doing today, by creating these spaces, by trying to help companies also to create conducive environments and to create strategies that will integrate more female talent, more female leaders. It really goes back to, I don't want to see anyone missing a chance just because they didn't have guidance. So I would finish with a call. Let us grow more wise, more women in STEM entrepreneurship, and go mad. Let's go make a difference. Because if we desire to make a difference in the world, we must be different from the world. Thank you. And I'm ready for any questions.
Thank you, Hanan, so much. This was extremely actually inspirational, I think, for our listeners. I was going to ask you actually about this challenge in particular. Did you ever regret not having continued in your STEM studies as a mathematician and physicist, or as someone who is really interested in this domain? Do you have regret?
Yeah, sometimes I have that remorse because I feel that I could have really I could have really have a better, better contribution to the world as a female, having studied all of that. I could have been an engineer or been in the science field, but yeah, I do. And that's why, like I said, I wouldn't want other girls to go through that and to drop out, because I call it a dropout, really. And that's what it was.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I think you raised so many important issues through your list about, the society conditioning and so on. So I'd like to move to Aya to ask her about any challenges that you may have faced, Aya, in terms of the social perception or general prejudices that exist, especially in our region. I believe I had read something that even your co-founder had gone through. She mentioned it in an article about being put in that box that, you don't belong in this area. So I'd love to hear more from you. Were you like a minority when you were studying? Did you face any particular stereotypes that you'd like to get rid of?
Yeah, so I can break that question into two parts. The first part would be how was the reaction when I decided I wanted to study engineering? And the second part would be how was it like studying engineering as a woman in STEM here in Lebanon? So regarding the first part, I was definitely an anomaly here in society because engineering degrees here are looked upon as a very noble pursuit. Engineering here is prestigious. If you study it, way to go. But then when it comes time to say that I'm an actual engineer who happens to be a female and I want to work into engineering, the perception of society kind of changes and you start getting the very traditional questions of, whoa, you should also have time to raise a family and to take care of a house and all of that. So I was very lucky to come from a very supportive family that never questioned my choices, never made me doubt whether this is a right or wrong path. It was just me following my ambition and them being supportive. But Maya and I, my co-founder, we were very annoyed by the fact that other girls did not have the opportunities that we had. And during university, during one of my earlier math courses, I remember very well, a good friend of mine came up to me and told me, if I don't do well on this course, why does it matter? I can always stay at home. And I was very shocked that she had the talent and if she can put in the work, she can make it. But why have that mentality already ingrained within you and why already give up when you haven't even started? So I think I was fortunate enough to grow up in a supportive environment, but unfortunately, the challenges that Hanan had referenced still exist in society, and that's why we took it upon ourselves to make sure that other girls can get the opportunities that we got instead.
For sure. And did you face, I mean, growing up as well, when you chose this path, did you actually find several role models to look up to, or was that a struggle for you?
So worldwide, there are amazing women disrupting the tech fields. In the Arab world, it was definitely hard for me. I think one of my main heroes is also named Aya. Her name is Aya Abdel, and she started Little Bits, and she's Lebanese. And she was pretty much the only Arab woman I could follow who disrupted the hardware community in such a way. Of course, there are a lot of women now doing amazing work and really creating change in these fields here. But again, it was hard to find these role models. And that's why initiatives like She is Arab are doing the important work of shedding light on these women so that it's easier for us to find someone to look up to.
Thank you. We really hope so. I mean, yes, of course, we did come across a lot of names that are sort of rising across the region, such as Rana Dajani from Jordan, or Dr. Hayat Sindhi from Saudi Arabia, or Dr. Sada Zahidi. And I think Hanan was, rightly also highlighted, Fatma Al-Fihri. I think there are some amazing women in the region, but probably we don't have enough books or publications, or we don't do a good job putting them in TV shows or commercials. A lot needs to be done there. But also, Hanan, I think the issue of policy making, you mentioned the regulatory framework. How important do you think this is? And do you think enough is being done when it comes to STEM or women's participation there? I mean, now in the GCC, the graduates are more than 60% from STEM fields. There are very similar or close numbers in countries like Jordan and other countries across the region, but albeit we still have 13 out of the 15 countries that have the lowest female participation rates in the workforce are actually in the Arab world, according to the World Bank. So such a shame. What do you think should be done in that area?
Well, I think there is definitely a rising awareness that there is a need to influence policy making and regulatory framework, because obviously, and that doesn't go just for STEM. I think this goes for female, in the labor laws and labor or the workforce is still underrepresented because of so many laws, because the conditions, I mean, the working conditions are still not really very conducive to having more female talents. There is a lot to be done. I mean, we don't want to talk about the obvious, which is it's really shameful that we still are talking about things such as maternity leaves, for example. So you have career breaks, a woman that needs to almost has to choose between moving to that stage where she wants to start a family and continuing on thriving in her career and reaching a leadership position. And because the rules and regulations are still not taking into consideration those specific needs for women if they really want to have more chances into having it. That's why many of us choose the entrepreneurial journey, because we feel that we have more control. And with that, we lose talents that could be working in the government, that could be really contributing in the development of better societies and better governments. And especially today, we're moving to a knowledge-based economy. We really will need that talent pool. The whole Arab world have no choice but to move to this knowledge and innovation-based economy. And if we are talking about 60% of graduates, something is not matching. The maths are wrong, since we're talking about maths here. So you're having a pipeline, a talent pool that is dominated by females, and the laws and regulations that will allow companies and the government to tap into that talent pool is not matching. So that leaking pipeline, as you mentioned, is going to affect, on the long run, very soon, is going to affect the performance of governments as well. So I hope that something could be done quickly. I mean, there are changes, but I think they are very slow, and they're not matching that rise and that growth that we are seeing in the talent pool in the STEM that is still dominated and will continue to be dominated by females.
Obviously, and when females are involved in policy making, they bring in a completely different perspective. Absolutely. And they actually integrate whatever there are in terms of women requirements, or like you said, career breaks, or even other considerations that are usually left out. I mean, you can't ignore 50% of the population, right?
Absolutely.
Well, should we worry now, Aya, about you pursuing your PhD abroad and then perhaps not returning to the region, the eternal problem of brain drain that we have in the region? Or do you have plans to return? I mean, are there enough jobs in the market for STEM graduates?
I think that's a very important question. And I think I should also mention that I come from Lebanon, which is facing its worst economic crisis in history now. So there's a lot of pressure on us young people with huge ambition and huge talent, ending up leaving to pursue a better career abroad. But ever since I started All Girls Code, I knew that whether I'd end up abroad or here, I'm always contributing and giving back to the community here. And personally, I'm definitely coming back sooner or later. And I think my only choice here would be entrepreneurship, as Hanan mentioned, especially when there is a lack of support from the government. It's up to us to create our own opportunities. And I think that's also, especially when it comes to a very advanced STEM fields, it's an issue that a lot of us youth face. We have the skills, we have the talent, but we do not have the opportunities where we can put these skills to use. And that's why we end up leaving. On the bright side, there are a lot of academic and research institutes in the region that are trying to invest and fund in such work to bring that talent back here. But I think that will take some time because the support outside is still much more advanced and much more comforting than what's happening here. I think the movement here is still slow, but it seems promising.
that makes a lot of sense. Inshallah, it is promising. I've heard that and I've read that. I mean, there are a lot of countries that are specifically focusing on R&D in STEM. There are a lot of organizations that are only providing scholarships in STEM fields. So, I mean, we're obviously cognizant of that gap, but yes, more efforts are required to fill this gap. We have a question about why do you think there's a huge gap between girls who are a majority in computer science classes and girls who actually work and survive in this field? I'm not sure I understand the question very well. Why do you think there's a huge gap between girls who are majority in computer science classes and girls who actually work and survive in this field? Do you
I think, yeah, I think, I mean, that's what we talked about. It's really that wide gap between the number of graduates and the number of employees or the number of career prospects is there. I think that's exactly what we've been covering. It's because there is that social conditioning. It's still thought of as a male-dominated field. A lot of decision makers have that stereotype that these are not fields for women. They can't thrive in it. So I feel that all those points that we spoke about, we covered earlier, come in the way to create that wide gap between what is making what I said in the beginning. It almost making us successful. I mean, Arab girls, it's like they're meant to be successful only in school. So we have that success in school and it's not translated. And that's exactly the issue that we need to work on altogether. Yeah, I hope I answered the question somehow.
I hope so. And if the person who sent it is anonymous, if you have a follow-up, please feel free to send through. Hanan, maybe now you can also share some reflections about the entrepreneurship ecosystem across the region. You're very active in this domain. You've worked on it specifically in our olden days as colleagues at work. And despite the fact, like you said, that 1 in 3 startups are founded or led by a woman in MENA, I guess we don't have enough, or there aren't enough efforts being made. Can you maybe shed some light on the North African region of the Arab world? Because I'm sure you're more familiar with that, and we have very little information about this region. Would love to hear more from you.
Yeah, sure. I think it's one, and I can talk mainly about Morocco because I have more information about that. I think it's been very heartwarming because it's the government is really pushing to create more entrepreneurial opportunities and more environments to help the entrepreneurs, starting from the regulations. Now you can start a business as what we call autopreneur. It's just as one person, and you can have your own license. And there's a lot in the banks, the financial, the access to capital. I think at this stage, as we speak, for the past 10 years, I think it's one of the probably role models in the Arab world. There are a lot of incubators, a lot of initiatives, and we see a lot of women as well get into the tech field. And the technology, and I feel that technology actually is going to help create more opportunities for women, because especially with what we've seen the past 3 months, like the issue of having to be in office, away from the family, traveling today, that being able to work from platform or start a business that is platform based, I feel that it will create even more opportunities for women to own their business, and that's not just in North Africa. So if we go back to the opportunities there, I think they are really, should I say, they are reassuring, they are promising, and they continue to grow year on year. So there are opportunities to learn, there are opportunities for mentoring. The private sector is getting involved as well. Every time I watch the Moroccan TV channel, I see a lot of commercials from the banks addressing entrepreneurs, that we can help you scale your business, we can help you access capital, we can help you expand, we can also accompany you with the skills that you need. And I feel that they're starting to look at it as a holistic approach, because it's not just the capital that is needed, it's really also those opportunities, creating opportunities for small businesses. So now some governments, institutions also create, they give requests for proposals to small businesses to really create that. So you really need to walk the talk when you say that you want to promote entrepreneurship. It's not just about having business plan competitions, which is great, but it's really about easing doing business, making the licensing affordable, and access to capital affordable, but also creating those real opportunities. And don't tell me that you need 3 years of, if you're a bank, you don't give me seed funding, which I think it's still limited in the Arab world. I mean, if I wait until I have 3 years of income or profitable 3 years, then probably I don't need you as a bank. So the seed funding is still an issue, and I hear it from entrepreneurs that I work with. And also one important thing that I feel is needed here is, and that will help us also develop more leaders, especially when I talk about females, is we focus so much on growing the business, we don't focus on growing the entrepreneur. And that's something at Sustain Leadership we focus on, because we want to create what we call a CEO kind of profile, so that when they feel maybe they exit, we will have a talent, we will have a potential talent that could be reintegrated to the workplace at government or other corporations. And this way, we don't lose that talent. So there needs to be focus on integrating leadership skills with entrepreneurship skills, and not just teach an aspiring entrepreneur how to pitch to an investor or how to build a business plan, but really work on the entrepreneur himself or herself. I think that's something that I really wanted to share with you, because we are talking about how we can create leadership pathways to entrepreneurship. And that's an important part of it. So it's very, very important.
And like you rightly mentioned as well, I think public-private partnerships and initiatives that include all relevant stakeholders are extremely important. In fact, I happen to be in Cairo right now, and I just read yesterday about an initiative launched by the IFC that is called the Egypt Women's Employment Program, which is in partnership with private sector stakeholders, and it will focus on removing barriers to women's employment by supporting legal reforms or a policy reform dialogue.
Amazing.
I think it's a great initiative to also look at the macro level in that sense. There's a question about whether or not the session is recorded. Yes, it's recorded, and it will be on She is Arab's YouTube channel. We will send those details in the follow-up email. But there's a question from Rana, who says she has a master in educational technology and wrote a thesis about STEM activities for preschool students. But when she came back to the Middle East, she found it very hard to get a job. So she came back to Turkey, where universities and schools are more open to STEM. Is there any STEM community for Arab people to get to know each other, to share ideas, to find a job? Because this is depressing when you feel you're alone and no one is helping you to develop your skills. I'm really sorry you feel this way, Rana. And in fact, by the way, this is one of the issues we plan to address as She is Arab, and it's really trying to create communities of practice to bring women who are from similar backgrounds together. But I'd love for Aya to reflect on that based on your knowledge and experience.
Yes, definitely. So over the past 3 years, I've been lucky to be involved with several multinational initiatives in the Arab world, specifically regarding women in STEM and youth in STEM. What I realize is that the efforts are really like with All Girls Code, we're immersive, we're trying to reach out as much as we can, but all the initiatives so far are local. So we did not see any large-scale initiative yet by a government that explicitly states that we're bringing all, talented Arab people in STEM here to do this and that. I think the effort is still scattered here and there. I can recall Google Women Tech Maker chapters in the Middle East. I can recall Arab Women in Computing. There's All Girls Code. I'm a bit more oriented towards computing fields, so this is coming out of my field of knowledge. But again, we've never felt that there is a large-scale support from governments ensuring that such initiatives can scale out comfortably, can expand comfortably. So again, it will seem hard, as the question implies, to find such initiatives because we're still operating at a lower scale than we all aim for.
I would just want to add to Rana, if you allow me, Samar. I think, we've always seen some communities grow because somebody felt the need. So probably, Rana, maybe this is a call for you to start this, one of those spaces, because I remember when we started Lean In, we just felt that there are no spaces for women to share as new entrepreneurs. We wanted to really, we were feeling vulnerable. And then we started that space and it grew. So probably sometimes when there isn't one initiative and you feel that need, it's from that need that you can create your own. and we'll be happy to support you on creating spaces like that. Feel free to get in touch. I'll be happy personally to help you do that.
Definitely. I mean, again, I will, of course, share Hanan's details in a follow-up email. I think we've raised many important points in this conversation, and I really believe that, yes, entrepreneurship is a fantastic pathway to a much brighter future that involves more women in STEM fields. And like you said, Aya, perhaps you're a bit biased for focusing on computer, but I'm sure there are also amazing engineers out there, amazing mathematicians and physicists and so on. And hopefully we will do our best to shed light on their success stories. I mean, the onus is also on all of you, such as even Rana or Aya, or to bring these women to our attention. And I think this is so important that as women, we all support each other, we help each other, and it's all about connection at the end of the day. I will take this last question. It says, do you believe that the pressure of well representation that females usually find on their shoulders once they're considered successful, especially abroad, tames those females and makes them less able to experience and maybe more careful, in contrast with males who can go through the procedure of error and experience more? What do you think, Hanan?
Just looking at the question. Trying to understand, is it a question or like a rhetorical question?
I think it's more about like if they have this success, the fact that, you know, as females we're usually labeled.
Yeah.
You know, where if you're a bit tough in a meeting, you're looked at as being, oh my God, she's horrible, she's so tough, so this kind of stereotyping, I think, and hence the use of the word tames those females and makes them less able to experience and more careful, in contrast with males.
Actually, that's a topic that I always speak about. We have to start by really detaching the comparison between men and women, or really talking about a feminine leadership model and the masculine leadership model. We're talking about female attributes that are showing today that are needed to deal with the current business challenges and societal challenges that the world is leading with. So there's definitely a lot of awareness that needs to be created about, it's not about men and women, because it's not about having more female leaders on the top, because if they lead with the masculine model, then we haven't done anything. Today we need a balance. We need that balance in the leadership model. So, and it will only happen if actually there starts to be acceptance that leading does not mean authority. And I think we're lucky because we live in the 21st century, and research is showing that actually the leadership style that will be needed for the complex problems that we're going through happen to be called as feminine attributes. Does not mean only women have them, but men can have them as well. But it's just that they're innate in women, which means it will give more chances to women to shine if they choose. And that's something I work on personally, to help female leaders lead authentically with their feminine attributes rather than trying to be somebody that they're not. And that's why we see a lot of burnouts. And we hear that in the stories in our spaces, women who reach C-level, and then you see them, many again drop out and go start a small business because she cannot handle it because she's becoming somebody else. So there's a lot of work to do, and I'm not going to be blaming the other gender. There's a lot of work that we need to do ourselves to stop, self-judging and to self-sabotaging by feeling that we have to be tough to lead. Leadership today is by empathy, is by nurturing others, is by collaboration. And this is not my words. These are the research that is showing that. Looking just at the way the crisis of the COVID pandemic has been managed, and the countries that really shown, that they succeeded at managing it, it's probably just a coincidence that they were all led by women. It just means that there is a different model that is needed, and that will help if we start shedding the light on that first.
Absolutely. You're
I would
absolutely
like to add one more thing very quickly. So, with All Girls Code and referring to what Hanan mentioned, we're focusing on leadership qualities that are not usually encouraged here in our society. There is still a lot of emphasis on encouraging girls to be perfect and to be, very studious and very good at school. There isn't a lot of encouragement regarding, being brave but not perfect, like going for mistakes, failing.
Yeah.
So, as Hanan mentioned, I think it also should start at young age when it comes to trying to encourage girls to develop the correct leadership qualities that are not always correct by societal standards, but rather correct by the results that we've been seeing recently, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, as Hanan referenced.
Absolutely. These are very important points that you raise. And I was actually going to ask you if you feel that the younger generations or the Gen Z that you mainly interact with now are seeing things differently. Do you feel that their perception is different, or it really depends again on their families, on their upbringing, on the societies they live in? So I bet there are multiple factors to bear in mind. I think we could go on for another hour talking about this topic. It's so important, so interesting. I'm not obviously the expert, but I'm so glad that at least as she's Arab, we're giving the platform to have this conversation, and hopefully we'll have more and more STEM related events down the line. So thank you so much for your time with us today. Thank you, Hanan. Thank you, Aya. This has been very insightful and very informative, and all the best with All Girls Code. And Hanan, we have a lot to learn from your experience as a dropout as well. So to all the girls out there, I say don't drop
Yes.
out.
No.
Keep going. Inshallah, you're gonna make it. We have to break these stereotypes and hopefully engage more women in STEM in the workforce across the MENA region. So thank you all very much for being with us today. All the
Thank you.
best.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.